there, little buddies, and welcome to yet another edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast. In this edition, we discuss Twin Peaks: The Return, Episode 7, which is titled Part 7. My name is Mothman, and I am joined here by the missing piece of my heritage, Devin. What's going on?
What's happening?
How you doing, man?
I can't complain. Everything's better with Twin Peaks.
It's true. Yeah, this new series, as weird as it is really growing on me. Did you happen to listen to last week's episode yet?
Yes, I did. I went back. I like to make sure I don't sound too much like a jackass, but I listened to Brooky Brooky Shy.
And you got to enjoy also Foxman just fucking hating the show. Like it's
him and I can't be friends anymore.
Right? Well, I mean, to be fair, he's never seen anything before. Like, it's just, this is his only perception of Twin Peaks. And it was interesting to get to talk to him and realize, wow, you're right. None of it should make sense. Like, they really do not do this with any kind of, new viewer in mind. So, we know there's a lot of avid Twin Peaks fans out there. We have one of them continually contributing to our show. He'll be on later in this episode. But we love everyone's input. Hit us up on Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. Also, if you feel like supporting us, we do this for free, yet we have operating costs. We have a Patreon account, patreon.com/boobtubebuddies. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, let's start with a little bit of weird news. You ready for this, Devin?
Let's do it.
All right, first thing up is pretty close to home. We're Disney World, right? Not Disneyland?
Yeah.
Okay, so at Disney World, they had to temporarily stop the monorail because a piece of chunk of metal just fucking flew off. So there's this visitor named Jim Parker who also social media savvy, because on Twitter he posted that a giant piece of metal went flying off the monorail and landed about 10 feet from him. There's a picture of him on there holding it up, and just subsequent tweets about him describing the ordeal. Which is kind of fucking crazy, right?
We are Disney fucking fanatics. And when my wife told me that story and showed it to me, that would have been like the highlight of my life if that would have been that guy.
And then you could keep that piece of monorail and like frame it in the shadow box.
Yes, absolutely. It'd go above my wall. It'd be my clock. I'd convert it over to like a wall clock or something. Man,
imagine if it could have like hit you slightly. Enough to do enough damage and get a fucking amazing Disney lawsuit.
You would never work again. You get free passes to Disney and would never have to work again.
Oh god, that would be the life, right? Yeah. So
I love that story.
Right?
It's like
I mean,
this
it's just
weird chunk.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like, it looks like it's slightly broken wood, but then there's clearly pieces of metal, wire, and track. Like, I won't lie, it looks important.
I was always curious because I've been to Disney World and Disneyland, and Disneyland has new monorails. I really don't know why they haven't ordered new monorails for Disney World, because, I mean, those are the original German monorails from 1981 when they ordered them. So they're super damn old. At some points, like, you guys have more money than God right now. Maybe purchase a few new ones, do an upgrade.
Yeah.
Or spend another $3 billion on a theme park for one film that hasn't proven whether or not the sequels can be successful or not.
Yeah, seriously.
Mad shade there.
Good. Yeah, you know what though? Pandora looks fucking amazing.
Yeah, we haven't gone yet.
Yeah, a buddy of mine is a set designer for Disney World and helped do some of the Pandora stuff, and like, God, it looks amazing.
They don't skimp. They go all in.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I think you maybe have a story?
Yeah, I got something. Another broken piece of a vehicle. So one of the most... There's two very, very, very... what's the term? The most valuable companies right now. And it's Apple and Tesla. And Tesla's been making a name for itself, and it's actually now the most valuable car company in the world at the moment. One of the things that they've been banking on has been this whole auto driving system. Well, one of the things over the last year and a half has been kind of this whole issue with, well, where's the liability if a car accident happens under autopilot? And it was all spawned from one story. A year and a half ago, the first fatal accident happened, and it turns out that through all the tests and all the investigation they did, it turns out the car had sent the driver multiple warnings that he needed to have his hands on the steering wheel. So a lot of people think that this auto driving means you just kind of jump in your car and end up at your destination. But out of a 37-minute trip, this guy only touched the steering wheel for 25 seconds of it. And it had 8 or 9 warnings saying, dude, your hands still need to be there.
How long was the trip?
37 minutes. He touched the steering wheel for 25 seconds of it.
Not
before
fucking
it rear-ended
bad.
Another car.
Especially for these, like, not being advertised as, like, you know, completely autonomous or self-driving. So, I don't know. That's pretty impressive, right?
I think it's crazy impressive. And, I mean, if the car is sitting there chiming in and saying, hey, dude, your hands aren't on the steering wheel, you're required by law to have your hands on the steering wheel, maybe put your hands on the steering wheel and pay attention.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense. But I'm more just impressed by how long he lasted.
Yeah, 37 minutes.
That's still pretty good. All right. One more, and then we'll get into the meat of the show, all right? So this one is actually pretty complex. I don't know if I'm even allowed to talk about it without scoring a certain amount in the SAT, but I'm going to try it anyway. So this is from the Science Daily. There is a new solar paint that can potentially offer endless energy from water vapor. So researchers, they've developed a solar paint that absorbs water vapor and splits and generates hydrogen, which I guess is the cleanest source of energy. What it didn't really say is like what kind of mechanism you would need, but I guess the idea is that as long as there's any moisture in the air, it reacts with the paint on the wall of, say, a house, and the chemical reaction generates fuel. So then I would imagine maybe it's like a special AC system or something that when it withdraws air, it then puts it into like a fuel cell. But the fact that, like, I don't know, there's so much pushback around renewable energy in certain, you know, kind of sectors in the world, right? But like, if we just put more time and money to crazy shit like that, like, does anyone really want to break their back and die early of a like black lung after being in the coal mines their whole life when we could just, I don't know, paint our house?
Dude, Jesus, preaching to the choir at this point, but no, I think when you get a mass of the population together, we love the idea of subsidizing 3,000 jobs where they end up getting cancer the rest of their lives shoveling coal, versus a little bit of ingenuity and, good God, moisture in the air. You'd have to just paint all the houses in Florida, actually most southeast United States, and we would never have to pay for power.
Well, yeah, like how many people would be like, oh, if I didn't have an electric bill, that's a raise, right? Like I would just work the one part-time job, you know, and to kind of provide for my family while my, you know, husband or wife works the other, you know what I mean? Like, you know, an extra 200 in Florida where AC is like a fucking killer, and then other parts of the country where heat is a killer. I feel like that alone almost becomes like bonus income, you know? So like, I just think there's so many things. We're just in this mindset that you need to work 40 hours plus to even survive, and yet, you know, if we kind of focus our minds in the right place, then maybe we just don't.
That story too is such an ingenuity, forward thinking, and that to me is where we should be pumping all of our energy and money. And really, the only thing that we've done for renewable energy that's really kind of taken off over the last couple of years, which I'd have to see if they're selling it now, was Tesla's house battery. Mm-hmm. And do you remember that? That is literally, you just plug a battery into your house and it charges off your current power just during cheaper hours of the day. That's the only kind of renewable energy source other than solar panels that has taken off over the last couple of years. And that's not even renewable. That's just charge this battery during the cheaper hours of the day.
If you do that in conjunction with solar power, then it's like awesome. And now, like, Tesla has those solar roof panels that are coming out, which are expensive, but it opens up the ability to potentially actually sell your excess power back. But let's face it, we're not here on an energy podcast, so maybe we should move into summing it up in a tweet. Anyway, but a good and hearty discussion. So now, summing it up in a tweet.
Oh yeah, we're summing it up, so summing it up, summing it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up, so summing it up, summing it up and up.
Tweet. Alrighty, and we are back. You want to go first? I don't know how your tweet is. Mine's so.
I feel pretty strong about mine.
Then I'm going to go first. Okay, so.
Okay.
Dale is. That way we can end on a high note. Dale is back while the Doppleganger escapes. Hawk finds what's missing, and it's giving me the crepes. Jerry is stoned while Diane is bemoaned.
Is that 140?
-3, but I could have gotten rid of some spaces and made it work.
Yeah.
But
that's close enough.
My favorite part is that creeps doesn't quite rhyme, so I just said crepes because who doesn't like breakfast food in Twin Peaks, right?
It works.
It does.
Damn good crepes.
Yeah, that's some damn fine crepes. All right, Devin, lay it on me. Lay on this masterpiece.
Hear a hum coming from the walls, but then again, I may just be high. Coop is coming back from Dougie, but Bob is now free, so danger may be nigh.
Oh, shit.
High nigh?
Yep.
It rhymes.
I know.
Foxman be pleased.
Some British doom coming in there. All right, well, that was something All right, well, let's get into it. So, probably the biggest piece of this episode, I mean, there's a few, but the biggest piece is probably the fact that, the saga of Dougie seems to be coming to an end, because we now get the first glimmer of Dale Cooper.
Yeah, that we both picked up on that in our tweet, which that was awesome. I was getting a little I was getting a little Dougie tired. How do you say that? That
well, I mean, we talked about it. I think you and I have, but I've definitely said it on here. They pull that, awkward to the point of just like almost being unbearable. Like they're doing a lot of that. Mm-hmm. They intentionally aren't using the music they used to that would give things like a slapstick, lighthearted feel. So kind of like that Family Guy joke where they're holding their skinned knee and it's like, Jesus Christ, move on. I'm sure plenty of viewers are already that way with Dougie, but I was just getting to that point this episode only for them to give me this badass kung fu moment when Ike the Spike tries to kill him.
And then finish it with the episode of him brooming for 3-4 minutes. He's sweeping.
Yeah, they won't let it go. But that was so funny to me because we're watching it and Julia goes, what the fuck's going on? And I, from the very first episode, by the way, have said, that's the actor that plays Jean Reno, but they just never zoom into him. The guy that gets killed by Leland.
Yeah.
And they finally show him and he's just a relative. But they're showing that whole scene with the brooming and it's taken forever. And I was telling Julia, I was like, wait a minute. This is probably near the end of the episode because normally they cut to the club and a hip new musician playing. But at this point, like it's so late in the night, they're just showing someone sweeping up. That's kind of like a clever gag for people that are paying attention to like the formula of the show,
And they end up ending it with going over to the cafe. And then you just get a quick little, hey, anyone seen Bobby? Oh, no. All right, credits.
Yeah. Like just they're having a little fun capturing some of the like monotony of daily small town life in between, obviously, all the crazy stuff going on. So as far as Dougie goes, he's still being super fucking weird. But I think the main Dougie scene, other than Dale, is him being at the office and the cops coming in. And I can't remember the dude's name, but I love that balding actor that's from like Anchorman and like all the other comedies. I could tell it was him from walking into the office through the blinds and was like, oh God, this is gonna be good. And the dynamic there is very funny.
I don't know if it's just because this show is so well revered, but everyone who's anyone is coming in to play at least a small part in this. And I actually met that's Todd Palmer, I think is his name. I always butcher names, so I could be wrong. I was on set with that guy for a little bit, and he is just that way in real life. So he's super cool, super funny guy. So when he did that and he slowly reaches in to get his notepad, I just thought it was hilarious. It read so well.
Yeah. They like both the detectives were both looking for the notepads at the same time. And right about that time, Naomi Watts comes in and is obviously, once again, the more capable and basically answers all the statements on behalf of Dougie at this point. And then not the doctor, his boss kind of comes in and sticks up for him as well. And I wasn't sure what was going on at first, but I thought that girl in the maroon was hitting on him again. There's like some kind of energy there, but then I thought she was making an excuse about police were there, but then when he said send them in, like she actually sent them in. But right after that, he goes outside, he's still weird, and it's just such an intense moment when he like kicks the gun out and everything, but then the arm shows up, like the gum tree dude, and starts saying squeeze. And like he's squeezing Ike the Spike, but then to see that there's just like a giant piece of flesh left on the gun, that was a pretty cool moment.
That was such a weird scene too, because he sits there, and did you notice that it was like a highlighting effect that they were doing? Like they were like, you must follow this flesh on the gun. It was dark around this gun, and they were following it. They were tracking along with it. And I'm like, I don't need this. I'm literally looking only at this point. Anyone is only going to look at the skin. So I was curious why they did that, but I mean, what in Twin Peaks really does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, to me that was just a natural progression of what Dougie's been seeing, because he sees the picture of the Black Lodge showing him how to get into the slot machines. He sees the little like laser pointers on what to mark up on the file, and it's always the arm kind of giving him this input, or something. Not the arm, but someone from the Black Lodge. So this time it's the arm. And he was just highlighting where to squeeze down against the the ribbed grip of the gun. So that's why I took it. I didn't think it was more for the audience. I think it's conveying how this Dougie character that's not fully there, otherwise is still pulling the shit off.
So it's a PO. That makes sense.
It's like a tutorial mode in like the video game when you first get it, and you can do all the badass moves. Like that's what Dougie is continually going through right now to become, Dale 2.0, hopefully kicking more ass than ever.
He kicked some ass. One thing I thought was funny is when Naomi Watts came in and they had that whole insight thing. One of the things I was picking up on this kind of overarching theme of just shitty parenting in the last episode, it was funny that she's sitting there explaining to the cops about how her son is home alone right now, waiting to be fed. She's like, and before you judge me, we have neighbors peeking over.
Yeah. And you know what the neighbors are. They're the fucking heroin addict.
Oh.
Right?
How did she not know the bomb went off?
I think it was...
That's a different neighborhood. Crap.
No, is it? I think it's his car.
It's his car, but is it the same neighborhood?
You know what? That's right. Maybe it's not because it got stolen. Okay, that makes more sense because I was like, wait, her neighbors are the drug addicts. They aren't. So no, that makes more sense. His car went missing after the night where he didn't leave the casino. They're trying to track Dougie, but the car I think was just maybe stolen. And Dougie obviously has some kind of money he owes, but now she's paid that. But now the police are investigating the blown up car that wasn't at his residence and the heroin addicts that called it in. So okay, that makes a little more sense.
I actually don't think it was stolen. I think he just left it at the house. Like he went comatose because real Cooper came back and he made her.
He left it at the he left it at the real estate home that the prostitute went to. Because I assume she's a prostitute and a real estate agent.
Must be.
It's Vegas, so both are legal. Yeah. It's Vegas, so it's all legal. It's all on the up and up. But like the fact that I don't know if you remember when she locked the door, it was one of those like lockbox where you put the keys back in.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, fair enough. So we might as well at this point throw to Brooky Brooky Shy Shy. I have no idea what we're about to talk about because I'm going to interview him later this evening. But then we'll come back and kind of dissect the rest of the episode. So we will be right back.
Player 3 has entered the game.
All right, everybody. I'm here once again with Brooky Brooky Shy Shy for our segment, Brooky Ain't So Shy Shy. And as always, he has some trippy ass shit to talk about. And I'm just going to let you kick it off. Like, take us down the path.
Well, thank you once again for bringing me back for this wonderful episode. I don't know how you feel, but
yeah,
it felt like a cathartic moment, like the moment when Ike the Spike comes out with the gun and Cooper immediately reacts. Everyone I know said they immediately stood up and cheered.
Yeah,
it's just like
badass moment.
When you hear a band that has like a really quiet chorus and it just explodes into a beautiful, catchy, or a verse into a chorus. I mean, when it explodes to a beautiful chorus, it's just like everyone feels it, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like this episode fires on all corners. I feel like it satisfied at least the fan within me, and from around the fan community, I've seen everyone say that this is the episode that either, and it's kind of, I don't know how much I agree with it, but people say they didn't realize how much they didn't like the return until they saw this one, or that this was the culmination of everything they had loved about the return up until now. And I think it's because of a very special thing, and I think it was planned out. If you look at the poster above Dougie's boss's thing, it says the date that it was aired on, Father's Day of 2017, and that is the 7th episode of the return of Twin Peaks. 7 itself is a magical number. You know what I'm saying? It's the culmination of everything that the return is meant to be. How do you feel about me saying that, my man, Mothman?
I definitely feel like this, we actually talked, I don't think it was even on air last week, about the cathartic moments and kind of the payoff, because otherwise there hasn't been an overly funny episode. Like, most of them have had a decent amount of brutality. And so to have episode 6, for example, right? The number 666 was the most brutal episode. And then the episode 7 is probably the most like cathartic, releasing one, especially just to see Dougie, kind of become Dale, even if only for 30 seconds.
Well, not to get off track with the thesis that I'm getting to, but like, it's interesting that you brought that up off the jump point, because 6 in most numerology is associated with the devil, and 7 is associated with God. Uh-huh. And when you look at it in a horoscope view, 7 is associated with the planet Saturn, which is what the lamp is in the Black Lodge with the little man from another place. He has a Saturn lamp. And they say that the door opens to the lodge when there's a conjunction of June and Saturn, a conjunction of basically the unholy and the holy, man's conscious mind with the subconscious. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of hit on a little bit of gold coming off right off the bat there.
There we go.
Yeah, you hit it basically. You already stole my thesis. So what I wanted to get to, though, with the magic of this episode and why 7 is such an important, like, a golden number, basically, for Twin Peaks, is that it's the end of the first act. It's 18 episodes divided by 3. So the cathartic moment where Richard Horne runs over the child in the last episode 6, is sort of not really, we don't have any resolution right now, but we have enough threads to go through, and it's a return to the woods, a return to Twin Peaks, as it were. And what interests me most is that there's this scene where we go back to basically the beating heart of Twin Peaks itself, the Great Northern Hotel, and we have Richard Bamer and Ashley Judd coming off of basically a career height. I haven't seen her in anything in a long time.
Me
I would
neither,
say,
man.
like, would you say a hiatus? And how much charisma can this young lady like put out there? Like, she is so magnetic, so wonderful to see.
Definitely.
And match with this classic actor who has somehow gone from the charming wolf to like Grandpa Turtle. You know?
Grandpa Turtle. Oh God, he does. He looks like Mitch McConnell.
Oh God. No. He's a bit more high tea than Mitch McConnell, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Ben Horne and Ashley Judd go from corner to corner trying to find the source of this hum. You're a musician yourself. I don't know what key it is. Some people have said it reminds them of a tuning fork. It's a drone, but it's not quite a drone. It's a chime. It's almost in the dog register. You can't put your finger on it, right? And they go back and forth. And the one thing that I noticed that I'm not sure many people picked up on is when they speak, they're asking each other, is it coming from here? No, I don't think it's coming from. Is it coming from there? The tone drops. It isn't in the mix. So it's only when people aren't speaking that the true magic of what in my opinion is the wood itself of the Great Northern is coming through. It's all coming through because, see, all right, I don't know if you're on Reddit about all this stuff, but people say that the theory is that the reason there's this hum is because Ashley Judd's character Beverly has brought Cooper's ring or not his ring, his key from his old room, 315 in the Great Northern Hotel, and she presents it to Ben. But she also says she's heard the sound for 6 days prior. So meaning that is the 7th day that she's heard the sound. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The sound has existed pretty much since probably the event of the first or second part. So when Cooper's soul was released from the lodge, probably the wood started singing, in my mind. That's how I would view it. There would be this hum. But why would she be the one to hear it? I wonder. But
yeah, I don't know.
It makes me think because I think it is because what the season is trying to tell us with all these like far-flung stories in New York, Las Vegas, and North Dakota, all these things is like the evil from within the wood has spread outward in the world. And even someone who's from outside of Twin Peaks can hear this magic thing like coming through. There's like pulsating waves coming from these woods within Twin Peaks, right? And this episode starts out with like Jerry Horne lost in the woods. He's freaking out, you know?
Yeah, stoned out of his mind.
You know, it all goes back to the woods, and Andy is waiting by the woods. He's supposed to be there at 4:30, which is the number that the evolution of the arm gave to Cooper. And then it flashes back to a creepy shot of this empty farmhouse where you know something terrible has happened. It's the magic of the woods is coming back. Number 7 is the return and like the macrocosm scope of Twin Peaks coming back in full force. It's all paying off in different ways because we have these fucked up acknowledgments like Evil Coop probably sexually violated like 2 of the most beloved fan characters, like how horrible, and this dude is a multiple murderer and he's free. That's terrifying. All of these things are terrifying. And we realize definitely 100% that Major Briggs has been dead, involved in a terrible magic ritual, and that there are these ghastly, coal-smoked zombie, whatever, ghostly goblins following this man's body, and all these paths and all of these things are coming together. But it's like, what are you going to do except for return back to Twin Peaks, in my opinion? I think it's all gonna come together. Someone's gonna see the footage of Dougie fighting off the psycho killer from the Black Lodge, probably, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, I don't know what much to say. I mean, it's such a magical episode. Number 7 means everything. A 7 if you look at it as one half of a pyramid, 3 parts of the pyramid, 3 is the magic number. So once you increase it, it becomes more powerful. 3 plus 7 is magical increase in Thelema. That's how it goes.
I think
I'll stop being David Icke, man. We'll cut it off.
Didn't Dougie get like as Dale? Weren't his jackpot 7s? I can't remember.
Lucky 7 Insurance.
Oh yeah, Lucky 7 Insurance for sure. And he was getting jackpots of 7s everywhere.
Speaking of bettings, dude, I bet you within the next 1 or 2 episodes he'll return to the Silver Mustang Casino. I guarantee you it's not the last that we've seen of the mafioso dudes. Dude.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. That's definitely going to coalesce in here at some point for sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you once again for coming on here and spilling some of like your theories and your thoughts and just kind of all the weird interconnected pieces of Twin Peaks. We continue to love it, and we'll see you next week, right?
Oh, absolutely, man. I'll always remember these nights, my friend. See you later, little buddy.
Player 3 has left the game.
And we are back. Thanks again to Brooky Brooky Shy Shy for phoning in each episode and doing these deep dives into all the theories and themes and messages within Twin Peaks. We'll keep having them on, so thank you once again. All right, to get into it, so the big reveal last episode is we finally meet Diane. It is Laura Dern, who David Lynch's last film, Inland Empire, was a star in. He obviously really likes her as an actress, and she is a fucking fireball.
Yeah. Fuck you, Mathis.
Yeah, pretty much. Fuck you. Go fuck yourself. That is Diane. But what they do a really good job of is in the course of an hour, you very clearly get a feel for Diane and who she is. She is a fireball. She speaks her mind, and she obviously felt that things ended poorly with Dale. You almost want in for a romantic relationship, but maybe it was just the fact that more likely that Doppleganger Dale came back and continued to do his diaries and probably sent obscene and terrible stuff to her before going off the grid, and that might make a little more sense, and that's kind of why Diane is quizzing him. But man, the moment she actually sees him and comes out of it, like, she is a changed person. Like, she clearly does not believe that is the real Dale.
Which I'm so curious, and I'm sure we'll figure it out, but what happened in that meeting? And it makes you question how often her and Dale actually saw each other before, because he was on the road. He's an FBI agent on the road. How often had they met? How often did they kind of work directly together? Because they definitely bring on that with with all the other agents, and then meeting the chief. It's not like they bump into each other too often.
Sure.
And for them to go 25 years, then go, hey, I haven't seen you in 25 years. You need to be debriefed. It brings out, I'm curious how many times Dale and Diane actually met each other in person, and what caused the conversation to go so crazy when they finally met. And then it was not dark. It was not real Dale. It was Bob, So I think it's interesting because so much of this show ends up basing around addiction, and she couldn't kind of focus or exist unless she had a little mini sample bottle in her hand. So I'm curious, how dark was that meeting that she's just completely screwed now?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine we'll get a little more insight into that later in the episode, but the fact that there was enough dialogue around that meeting, it seems pivotal, especially in her mind, and I'm sure we'll kind of get a little bit more into that later. The other stuff we got to deal with was Hawk. We last episode, he was prying that door open to figure it out, and he finds pages from Laura Palmer's diary that are quite intriguing, wouldn't you say?
There was a lot of Laura emphasis in this episode. And she's been kind of kept out most of the second half of the last season and then most of this first season, other than that just, hey, I'm back. But Lynch has said on many occasions this is a show about her. And so I thought it was interesting. Maybe he had just kind of, I was thinking for a little bit there that maybe he just kind of gave up and said, all right, fine, we'll move on to the next arc. But there was a lot of her in this episode, so I'm curious if that's going to be kind of a more of a narrative moving forward as everything slowly goes back to Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I can see maybe it becoming a bit about the origin and genesis of her powers and like spiritual abilities, because the big revelation is that in these diaries, before Dale ever came to Twin Peaks, she is speaking about him and writing about him, and clearly was having, you know, what she saw as dreams were really visions where she was actually in the Black Lodge, you know, which makes sense. After she dies, she's in the Black Lodge and talks to Cooper. So the fact that she kind of had figured out a way to gain access through, you know, whether it's transcendental meditation or like lucid dreaming, she was gaining access. And I imagine in a time like that, you know, maybe the characters age, but otherwise time doesn't seem to move, right? So, because he's been there 25 years, and I don't know, they didn't try to imply that he was getting antsy or bored, but he obviously was aging. Laura's age, but at the same time, she was communicating from the future. So there's all kinds of fucking crazy shit. The moment, though, they were doing this, I'm like, why the fuck would they be in that door? And they say it's Leland, and then I'm like, well, why would he have put him there instead of burned him? But luckily, they gave you a reason, which is that maybe he took him from her diary, was going to get rid of him. That happened to be the same day he got brought in for questioning, and he didn't want to be frisked and find them on him, so he excused himself to the restroom, hid them in that door, and then basically, you know, came back to being questioned. So, you know, that passed the smell test. That made sense.
It's definitely was the first episode we got some honest, corroborated evidence.
Yeah.
Something that made, you know, legitimate sense. But
wait, you mean it doesn't make
thing.
It doesn't make sense that William Briggs is like 20 years younger and has no head and his fingerprints are on that body?
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like so Laura ages, Coop ages, Major doesn't. So I'm curious. So the Black Lodge time moves, but wherever Major was, time doesn't move or locks, or for some weird reason he died 25 years ago yet was preserved. It's confusing as shit.
Right.
But that's part of it. I mean, that's part of, at what point do you try to figure it out, or just let the coffee and pie talk for itself? You know?
Yeah, at what point do you kind of give up on some of that stuff? It's hard to say, but I mean, that's one of the things I find so appealing about the show is the back and forth, right? They're clearly letting you know that there is like this timelessness to the Black Lodge, and you know, time is a flat circle almost in some cases, right? But then they're also kind of throwing the weirdness out there that these other characters are very much well informed about, which is the fact that you know, Briggs, that doesn't make sense that these are his prints. And they did clarify, I didn't understand quite in the prior episode, it's not the 16th or 17th body they found with the fingerprints, it's the first body they found. They've just had other crime scenes that have always had Briggs prints, and he's been missing, and they've kind of thought he was this weird, you know, criminal at large potentially, and clearly, you know, through this he isn't.
Yeah, there's definitely two very, very large controversies going on. You've got this stuff with Major's prints, and then you've got this crazy overarching insurance scam that has even the warden of a prison involved. So it's hard to tell whether or not they're kind of pointing all to the same thing, or if it's two or maybe even three separate incidents. I just, it ends up being one of those things you just kind of got to go for the ride, right?
a little bit. Is there anything else in this episode we need to dive into? I mean, We tackled.
Was it? What?
Go ahead.
Did you notice that Cooper slicked his hair back more in this episode?
I didn't quite notice that, but I definitely felt he seemed more Dale Cooper. So
yeah,
maybe that was the subtle change that was part of that look even before the kung fu ensued.
The kung fu.
But otherwise I didn't notice that. Man, it's a good episode.
I do think that. Oh, last week we asked what we both had forgot what happened with Audrey Horne. Well, it's actually, they brought it up in this episode, and it's a huge plot piece that I'm blown away I forgot. So she's in a coma.
Audrey's in a fucking coma?
She's in a coma because of the bank bomb. It was in like the last 2 episodes of the last season 2 before they went on hiatus. So she goes in and she locks herself in there to try to protest that they were trying to save the weasel. And they go in and they open up the safe deposit box from the key that they found in Laura's diary, and it blows up the whole bank. And I guess she was shielded by someone, so everyone dies except for her. But she's been in a coma for 25 years.
Oh my God! Yeah, jeez. All right.
I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's kind of a big event for me. Just to be like, oh, I guess that's that's done.
Yeah, no, I completely forgot. Like, because there's almost after like they kind of resolve the Laura mystery, Twin Peaks kind of becomes fast paced, and there's a lot more like one-off plots that. I watched up until they solved Laura and just didn't get around to watching it before this show started. And then we've also had, all the other shows we do, so I just haven't had time, but that makes sense. I guess the only other thing we get is more interaction with Jerry and Ben, because we haven't really seen them for quite a while. And Jerry's just stoned out of his mind, but I don't know how much to read into it. Yeah, I think I'm super high. I don't know where I am. I don't know how much more to read into that at this point in time.
I think that is where it will end, and I think that's just fine.
Absolutely, cool.
I thought the Skype call with the doctor was awesome.
Oh, that's right.
He sits there,
because that's the same doctor from the original, right?
Yep. Yeah, they're breaking down like when we've lost so many actors. Which the original guy who does the dancing dwarf in the first show, did he pass away, and that's why we're not getting him anymore? Because his character is now the tree.
It's a giant feud. He, I guess, wanted more money than David Lynch thought he was worth for a small piece like that, and then he started going on Facebook and proclaiming that. Everything that Laura went through is actually what David Lynch's daughter went through, and it's just like his catharsis. And David Lynch's daughter, Jennifer Lynch, who's a director, actually wrote a book called The Laura Palmer Diaries, and it's supposed to be the actual diaries they find. And he's proclaiming that that's her actual diaries, and he basically just changed the name to Laura, and it's all this sick, twisted, blah blah blah. But I guess the dude's just gone off the fucking deep end. So. This is just Lynch's way to be spiteful. Make him into a tree with a stick of gum on it. We don't need you anymore.
I think it's interesting because you sit there and you get him, he's gone. But, they haven't really pointed to actors that they can't bring in unless they're, even in like non-subtle ways with like the log lady, is they're sitting there, they're trying to include. And they're only including if they can pull them back. And that's why I thought this episode was a little more interesting, because why go out of the way to have the phone call with Harry? That wasn't necessarily needed. They could have gotten the same kind of story without doing that. So I wonder if maybe we still might see Harry.
Yeah, like as a secret or something. Who knows? I thought it was also a little weird that Harry's brother has a computer screen that'll pop up out of his desk.
Yes, that was so awesome.
It was really awesome, but it was very, very out of place, but I loved it. Yeah.
He said this old guy just gotta go super futuristic and very, very 70s kind of technology. I just thought that was awesome as shit. I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was very cool. Awesome. Well, at this point then, are you ready to tie a bow in this bitch?
Yeah. We'll see you next time, little buddies.
Peace. We will be
back.
back.
Good at this.
You are, man. We will be back next week, I believe, with Kristen. But we'll definitely get some more Devin later in the season. So later, y'all.
Sounds good. Bye.